Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the April meeting of the Russellville City Council to order at this time. Welcome to everyone who has taken time out of their schedule to come and see how we deliberate on the many things that we have to deal with for the city of Russellville. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to stand, and I will offer prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening and all the blessings that we share. We ask that your guidance be with us this evening, and as we conduct the business of this city, may we be mindful of you as we go throughout our daily lives and as how we deal with others. For all of these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from the March meeting?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to adopt and accept the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask a young lady to come and join me over by the podium over here, Camry Ewing. Will you please come forward at this time? Thank you, young lady. I have a proclamation here that I think is very pertinent to what has taken place in the River Valley area here by a young lady who, if you don't already know this, was presented with the award of the Citizen of the Year for Russellville, among other things. And she has done an outstanding job with the vision that she had and dedication for a tremendous thing. So with that, I want to read this proclamation. Whereas Camry Ewing founded Camry's Colorful Creations, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping children in need. And whereas in the last 2 years, Camry's Colorful Creations has raised and donated over $11,000 to help children in the state of Arkansas, including those at the Southern Christian Home in Marlton, Arkansas. And whereas in America, every 4.5 hours, a child commits suicide. And whereas in America, 1.6 million children are homeless, and in Arkansas, there are over 18,000 homeless children every year. And whereas in America, every 47 seconds, a child is abused or neglected, and every 5.5 hours, a child is killed by abuse or neglect. Whereas in America, every 21 seconds, a child is arrested. And whereas in America, every 9 seconds during the school year, a public school student drops out of school. Whereas in America, every 90 seconds, a baby is born to a teen mother. That equates to 847 babies every day. And whereas in America, every 32 seconds, a baby is born into poverty. That's 2,723 babies every day. Whereas in Arkansas, there are over 36,000 grandparents raising their grandchildren. And whereas in Arkansas, every 47 minutes, a child is abused or neglected. Whereas in Polk County, there are 66 abused or neglected children in the foster care system on any given day. And whereas every child in the state of Arkansas deserves a safe place to grow up, now therefore, I, Bill Eaton, Mayor of the City of Russellville, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim May 16th, 2014 as just one day. If you can't help 100, help just one. And call upon the people of Russellville to join in recognizing and celebrating this special occasion by being kind to and helping a child on this day and every day, in witness whereof I have set my hand and the seal of the city to this proclamation. And Camry, thank you so much for what you do and how successful you have been in your endeavor. We appreciate you very much. I'm thinking that she's being just a little bit quiet here tonight because I've spoken with her in the past, and she has plenty to say about what she is working on. So we do thank you very much, Camry. Well, as I've read this proclamation regarding Miss Ewing, the first sentence, dedicated to helping children in need, I think of how important it is for us to remember to take the moral high ground in our processes to make things better in this city and abroad. With that in mind, I must refer to the current week that we are in. We are observing Holy Week, and its importance is such that by considering that, we are making things better. And I wish everyone a happy Easter. Thank you. That concludes my report. Mr. McCohen.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Finance report for March. General fund revenues, $883,784, 3.2% below our projections. Sales tax receipts of that was $596,704. Franchise fees and permits were $51,411. General fund expenditures, our total expenditures are $905,336. That's 0.42% below our year-to-date projections. Currently, we've received $71,795 less receipted than expended. Street funds operation revenues were $130,798. That's 13% below their year-to-date projections. Sales tax revenues were $15,679 and were 3.8% below year-to-date projections. The new half-cent sales tax was $39,012. Street fund expenditures, operational expenditures were $117,679. That's 12% below their projections. Sales tax expenditures was $0 for March, and capital expenditures in street department were $0 for March. Economic development revenues were $9,961, $6,544 new sales tax, and $3,416 in interest. Expenditures were $22,500 for the Alliance. Capital assets revenues were $517,417. $232 was interest. $2,510 was transfer. $514,674 was the new sales tax. Expenditures were $22,240 to City Corp, the Police Department, and Airport. The current balance in capital assets is $931,262. The building fund, of that, the building fund is $349,242.
Any questions for Mr. McCohen? Thank you, Jerry. At this time, I'd like Mr. Harris to come forward and give a report from the planning department.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to tell you just for a couple of minutes about just one small thing that got underway last month. It just involves me, actually. Over the last couple of years, maybe even 3 years, this body and the Planning Commission, staff, and a lot of developers and citizens have spent a lot of time talking about sidewalks. And all that activity led to changes to both the zoning code and the subdivision regulations as to new construction. I think we closed up some gaps that needed closing. So now if you build something new in Russellville, you're probably going to have to build some sort of sidewalk to some degree, which is a good thing, I think. We needed to do that, and we were overdue. But when you talk about new sidewalks, you're talking about a couple hundred feet in front of a business, or a few hundred feet in a small subdivision, or even in something like Overland Park with 80-plus lots, you're talking a few thousand feet. And when you compare the new with the existing sidewalk inventory or system, which comprises miles and miles and miles, I'm not even sure that we have even a rough estimate of how many miles of sidewalk we have. So the new is just, I'm glad we've made those changes, but it's really a drop in the bucket in the total sidewalk picture. Really, ever since I got here, I've been thinking about we needed to have some sort of an inventory of sidewalk conditions. And I heard rumors that there was one, and there was one underway, but I never saw it and never really heard that there actually was. So I just decided I would just start one. I started when good weather hit back in March, and I've already done probably a couple hundred photographs. Initially, I was just going to do downtown, but the more I do it, the more I'm going to try to spread it out. I'm thinking that I'll include at least Main, Arkansas, Parkway, or at least a chunk of Parkway, 4th Street. That part of it's still in flux as to what I can include, because if I'm going to do it all by myself, it's going to take a while. I am not doing a big, highly technical, in-depth thing where I'm measuring angles and slopes and grades and things. I don't think we have time for that. There are certainly firms out there that'll do that kind of work, and it'll be $40, $50, $70, $80,000 to do a city the size of Russellville. To me, that's overkill. But it'll be comprehensive in the sense that the areas that I cover will have a complete list of the shortcomings of the sidewalks there. It won't be comprehensive in that I'm not going to go out into every neighborhood. I just don't think I can swing that. And it won't be comprehensive in the sense that it'll be highly technical. I think this is necessary for us to have a realistic shot at making good decisions about where to spend limited funds on fixing sidewalks. I bet every one of you could list 6 or 8 or 10 places you know where sidewalks, where there's a serious problem. Some of those you'd fix it and probably might not make a big change. There are other places where you literally have hundreds of feet of sidewalk in pretty good shape, and then some barrier or some real problem, and then another several hundred feet of sidewalk. But that barrier, especially for someone with a handicap, basically negates the value of that sidewalk, because you can't really go from A to B because there's that thing right there in the middle. So my notion is that being a planner, the first thing you do when you have a problem is you inventory what you have, because you can't figure out how to get to a better place until you know what you have. So that's my little project that I'm doing. I'm still in flux about how widespread I'm going to try to do it. It's going to take me many weeks to do it, so it's not going to be something I'm going to hand to you. But I hope to have at least a report that will give you some kind of notion, a little bit better information, how to prioritize, again, where to spend limited funds on sidewalks. I've talked with Mr. Oaks a couple of times briefly about this. I'm not going to be at cross purposes with him by doing this. But I'll look for any input that you'd like to have. If you have some places in town, you know, mine, I'm human too, and mine's going to be based somewhat on the places I'm familiar with and the places I go. So once I get beyond Maine and Arkansas and downtown, I'll be looking for input if somebody has a stretch they think really should be included. And the things I'm looking for are places where we have pairs of, you know, things that generate trips, origins and destinations that are likely to have potential for pedestrian use. And I don't want to get political here, but I think we all would agree that the chances are fairly high that 10 years from now gas will be more, and we'll be trying to walk more and bicycle more. This is not something that happens overnight. It's an incremental thing, so the sooner we start. But we've got a pretty good sidewalk system, but there are obviously problems everywhere, and there's some places where a relatively inexpensive fix can render a stretch much more usable than it is now. So that's really all I have, but I look forward to any kind of input any of you would like to have. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. committee reports. We do have a couple of appointments to make this evening or consider. And one is Mr. Brian Fisher to term as Commissioner on the Russellville Housing Authority. Do I have any kind of a recommendation in regard to that?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Fisher to the Russellville Housing Authority. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The second one is consideration of appointments to the Cemetery Commission. Rebecca Howe Gosnell to fill vacancy of Mr. Tom Halas, and Anna Fields and John Harris reappointments in their terms. Do I hear?
I move that we
Consideration.
confirm all three of them, Mr. Mayor. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Finance Committee, Mr. Horton.
Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee met last week, produced a list of items for the council to consider. Item 1, to replace the part-time secretarial position in the city attorney's office with a full-time. Finance Committee recommended that, and we make that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 2, resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to apply for and sign, if granted, a 90-10 grant from the Federal Aviation Administration on behalf of the airport. Finance Committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, item 3 is a piggyback item for the last one. Resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement with Miller Newell Engineers for the engineering work on that project, and that is recommended in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 4 is an appropriation for street fund. It is a pass-through repair on a snowplow for $3,035. That is recommended in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
5 is an appropriation from Capital Parks Fund. It is for security camera and public address system at the Parks Department. The committee recommended that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor?
Mayor, can we have some discussion on this for a second, please, Mayor? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is going to come out of the recently passed sales tax renewal, correct? I guess I have some concern over taking money out of this to fund $20,000 today, 4 months into it, when we pretty much the purpose of this fund was to put some trails in Russellville, light the soccer complex, and a few other things. And any money we take out of it before those two things happen, or less money that we're going to have on those two projects. And I believe that we've already found out that we're probably not going to have a matching grant for the lights of soccer complex that we thought we were going to have when we went into the sales tax election. So we're going to have a higher expense possibly there if we don't find more alternative funding. So I have a little bit of question if this is just quite the best use of this sales tax money. This is a capital item. We're going to have a capital budget. Why wouldn't these things be in the yearly budget or the yearly capital budget instead of the sales tax money?
Well, now, you make a pretty good points, but the trails and the lights were primary. Well, they were the major projects that the Parks and Rec was going to engage in, and that's correct, right? Those were the two major things, and then wasn't there some language about other projects as well?
Yes, there was.
I guess the question is really, is $20,000 going to be enough money to apply to other projects? projects, to make the lights and the trail systems inadequate, especially, I think, given the, fact that an updated camera system will, absolutely increase the security at the Hughes Center, where there is, I might add, lots of use and quite a bit of criminal activity. So, I mean, is it enough money that it's gonna hinder and hamper the other two projects?
Mr. Irwin, I can't answer that, but I can answer that we don't know that until we get into those two projects. Typically, we fund capital items through a capital budget, and I'm not sure why we're not doing this the same
Let-
way. Mr. Hollis indicated last week at the meeting that he was suggested or asked to come before us to ask for this out of the sales tax money, and, you know, if we start doing that, other departments, you know, what are we setting as a precedence, and what's our priority here?
Well, can Jerry help us out
Let
here
me,
with that?
that's what I was going to ask. Mr. McCoy, what was the amount that we projected in that particular section from the tax?
1.3 million,
That's what I was thinking.
and so this is not going
Yeah,
to significantly hinder that
Insignificant.
in any way. And
We have had
This-
some issues there that desperately need surveillance, and I would certainly recommend this to be funded.
Mayor, I'm not opposed to these two items. I'm just opposed to funding them the way it's being proposed to fund.
I'm
We-
not sure it's
we
improper to
found-
fund it this way.
We found $250,000, I think, out of our other accounts to buy land for the fire department. And we can't find $20,000 to do the same for a security system at the Hughes Center? That's my
Well, we
question.
didn't have land acquisition, wasn't part of the sales tax either, was it? Just the
Yes.
building itself, right?
Nope. It's all inclusive. That's my only objection is
Okay.
we found ways to fund other things, and we're taking away from two important things of our community by doing
I'm
that.
not sure we're
Was
taking
this-
anything away. I think we're probably adding something too.
Was
That's
this
probably
approved?
needs to
Excuse
be
me.
added.
Pardon me for interrupting. I didn't mean to cut you off. Was this approved at the Finance Committee meeting?
That is
Horton?
the committee's
Okay.
recommendation.
yes,
Okay.
And it
And
is-
we do have a motion. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ah.
Okay, would you read the roll, Ms. Collins?
Mr. Horton,
Aye.
Mr. Roberts,
No.
Mr. Martin Owen,
Aye.
Mr. Seth Owen,
Aye.
Mr. Tripp,
No.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Well, I missed the agenda meeting, so let me just be clear before I vote. Am I voting to take it out of the 1 cent sales tax versus the capital funds?
yes.
That's what I'm voting on? Or we don't have money in capital to fund it?
We don't have any capital
We don't have
budgeted.
any capital?
We don't have capital budgeted today.
We haven't done it yet this
We
year.
have not put forth the
The
capital
sales tax has
budget.
also had other projects
It was
as opposed to the
designated
two
for
majors.
other equipment and projects.
Correct.
I just don't know, I don't know on this one. I agree with Mr. Tripp that it should be capital. I agree that we need a security camera at the Hughes Center. Now, which fund do we take it out of? That's what I have to decide.
This money is capital money.
It is capital money?
It's just coming, it's the 1 cent sales tax
It's-
going into capital.
Got it, okay. Okay, yes.
Mr. Stuber,
No.
Need my vote. Pass or not?
I've got 4-3. You missed somebody, Mr. Horton.
Mr. Harris is not here.
4-3.
Okay, that's right. So,
Mhm.
yes, you'll need to pass. It needs
I
5
vote.
affirmative votes.
I vote yes.
Motion carries.
Ms. Horton?
Mr. Mayor, item 6 was an appropriation from street sales tax fund, $62,000 to rehab signal work at Highway 7 and 64. The committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
7, appropriation from the police training fund, $16,193.50. This is a reimbursement, it's basically a pass-through, is that correct, Mr. McCoy, from the U.S. Marshal Service? The
This-
Finance Committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All right, this is not a reimbursement, isn't that correct, Chief Humphrey? This was for
Forfeiture.
forfeiture of a bus that was made, isn't that correct? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, tonight we tabled discussion of the Public Works Engineer position. We had a line to discuss the Aquatic Center. That is an ongoing discussion. We are still processing, so no action was taken on that. 3, an appropriation for police for salaries. It's a budgeting item, $667. The committee recommended that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 4, A and B are line item transfers for the police department, and the committee recommends that in the form of a motion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Mr. Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stuber, do you have Personnel Committee?
Yes, we have one
Report.
item on the agenda here that pertains to personnel policy handbook as it relates to weather, inclement weather, and the changes in your book here. And I move that we suspend the rules and read that one time by title only with an explanation from our attorney or Tracy.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah, it's gonna be read by title only.
Okay. We have a motion to suspend the rules and read one time by title only. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Attorney?
An ordinance amending sections of the City of Russellville Personal Policy Manual for the purposes this ordinance, if passed, would amend the Personnel Policy Manual, page 9, concerning the inclement weather policy with the attachment that is hereby attached with this ordinance regarding inclement weather and the employees having to come in whether or not such inclement weather is it makes it whether they can or cannot make it, and also if they cannot make it, that vacation will be used up if they elect not to come in or cannot come in, but the city is open during that day.
Any other?
Move to adopt.
All right. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move we adopt the emergency clause.
Let me call
Second.
roll.
Just a moment, and we'll call the roll
Oh, I'm sorry.
on this.
I'm
You're
sorry.
good.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Martin Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Move we adopt the emergency clause.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the emergency clause. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Your Honor, before we move on, there's one thing I'd ask that we back up to item 2, discussion of the aquatic center.
Could we take a vote on the emergency clause
Mm-hmm.
first?
Yeah, we did a verbal, yes. Does that need to be?
It needs to be roll call.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Seth, did you
Mr.
second it? or
Yes,
was-
ma'am.
Stuber,
Okay.
and then,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, I'm
Mr.
sorry, but item 2 on tonight's Finance Committee, the Finance Committee recommended reconvene the Pool Committee.
yes.
You're correct.
And
I failed to note that.
I think I don't,
I thought that was part of your comment that you made during that.
well, I don't know if I don't know that it may have been, I just don't know if that needs specific attention or not.
I
think
know
we
that.
shortened Mr. Tripp's motion to, just to table it, but that was the discussion, that we
That
Yeah.
was-
reconvene
I-
the pool committee
I-
and
Yeah, I think everybody is aware of that. I
Okay.
think the clerk has that as part
Okay.
of her.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, though. Okay. Unfinished or old business number 1, consideration of a resolution adopting a solid waste agreement for the city of Russellville to apply for the next 5-year term of service for residential customer trash service. And it is to be included in as information in the bid package during an invitation to bid the process. This was postponed from last month. I do know that we have one individual here who would like to speak on this, but what is the?
Motion to adopt, Your Honor.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All right, we have a time for discussion at this point in time. Anybody here at the table that would like to discuss that at this point?
If, I think Mr. Moore could outline it for us if he feels it's necessary. I think most of we did that last month, and all we really did was just kind of clean it up a little bit to satisfy Citicorp, and it was fairly simple and straightforward, and
Yeah.
so.
Correct. We do have one individual here, Mr. Tim Llewellyn, who has asked to speak in regard to this item, so.
I'm Tim Llewellyn. I'm the district director for the Western Valley Regional Solid Waste Management District, which Russellville is a part of. I just want to step up here tonight and thank the Solid Waste Committee for taking the time to visit with me last month. When you talked about this, I had asked that y'all direct the recycled material to our facility. I just want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to speak. And if y'all got any questions, I'll be around later to answer them, or now if you'd like.
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Llewellyn? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We have a motion and a second on the table. No other discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
No.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Unfinished business number 2, consideration of an ordinance amending ordinance 1564 and 2122, which will regulate hunting and the discharge of firearms within the city limits, which has to do with lowering the minimum acreage requirement necessary for the urban deer hunt in the city of Russellville.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
Your Honor, the reduction in acreage only applies to the urban deer hunt. It's an archery hunt from an elevated position so that arrows are fired downward and does not reduce the amount of acreage upon which you can use a firearm. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It's an ordinance, so if we're wanting to
Yes.
pass it tonight, we'll have to
Okay.
go back and suspend the rules.
Mm-hmm.
My
I'm not
bad,
sure when
Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
Motion to suspend the rules and read, one time by title only with a short explanation.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, you heard the motion. We'll suspend the rules. And as was being discussed, this has nothing to do with the current property owners who have been grandfathered and have greater amounts of acreage or whatever. This is strictly as it relates to the urban deer hunt. Mr. Smith, would you please read that?
An ordinance amending ordinance numbers 1564 and 2122. The ordinance was to regulate hunting and the discharge of firearms within the city limits, lowering the minimum acreage requirement necessary to hunt deer during an official urban deer hunt for the purposes. This ordinance, if passed, only alter the discharge of firearms acreage amount only for an urban deer hunt that's sponsored in part with the Game and Fish Commission from 40 acres to 20 acres during that time period or during that sponsorship.
Motion to adopt.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
in my packet, it still shows 40 acres. I'm assuming that's just a typo. I just want to be clear that we're voting on what we're supposed to. Page 1 of 3.
Yep. Should be 20.
Am I not reading far enough?
Now,
No,
if you look
second-
at,
No, that's correct. The second page, is going to 2 of
Okay.
3, it's 20, and that's right.
It's 20,
it's
okay.
20, it's just the old, that's the old one. The old exception's not being altered. I didn't underline, but really the third paragraph should be underlined. That's new. And so,
Should we make that as a correction?
no, it's just, on 2 of 3, that first full paragraph is new, and the paragraph that starts where it says exception of 1 of 3 is the old, already existing language.
Okay. Is that,
All right,
is
yeah,
that
I
clear?
should, there should be an underline of where it says property owners minimum of 20 acres. That's the new addition to that
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 40 acres is staying the way it is for other
Yes,
than,
for
Yes.
all other purposes
For-
except for the urban deer hunt.
That's right.
I get it now.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please call the roll.
Mr. Martin Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Stuber?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, I don't know why it'll hurt to wait 30 days for this to go into effect.
I don't think there is any reason for it not to. All right. Thank you. New business, consideration of a resolution organizing the city council for calendar year 2014 and exchanging or changing some of the rules regarding setting the agenda and the distribution of ordinances or resolutions. Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. What this does, just as a further explanation, it provides adequate time to publish and distribute to you all as council members the information that you need to allow you time to review what we have that will be put forward, and it will certainly improve the city clerk's function and workload in order to use this guidelines, so I appreciate that. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. New business number 2, consideration of a resolution requiring the removal or razing of an unoccupied, dilapidated structure on East K Street. And I might just add a bit of information and explanation of the resolution. This is a building that has burned, and there is not really a reasonable way to rehab this particular structure. So, Mr. Holstein is on inspections at ConAgra, maybe.
Motion to
Mr.
approve, Your
Okay,
Honor.
okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or whatever? Mr. Moore is here with us. He can provide any.
This would
Response.
be a DSAF action. Doing society a favor.
Yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. New business number 3, consideration of a public hearing and an ordinance vacating 10 feet of the 60-foot right-of-way of West 2nd Street that lies adjacent to and south of lots 5, 6, 7, and 8 in Block 10 of the McClure and Bayless additions in the city of Russellville, submitted by Kirk and Dana Warren. This was recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission. All those who are present here, I am now going to open the public hearing in regarding to this particular ordinance and action that will take place. So if there are those who would like to speak one way or the other in regard to that, please come forward to the microphone at the middle of the room at this time. Please state your name and for the record, please, ma'am.
My name is Dana Warren. I'm the owner of Recovery Zone Pediatrics, and I'm here with my husband, Kirk, and our partner, James Custerin. We requested to vacate a portion of 2nd Street. I know y'all have all read the minutes, so I don't want to review too much, but just enough to be helpful that when we first bought the property, the asphalt turnaround extended into 2nd Street, which just fooled us a little bit on the property boundary. My goal of this meeting right now is to work with you to come to some type of compromise. We originally requested 30 feet to try to close the road like it was done for Walmart, and we ran into some resistance because I realized the city has maybe a long-term plan to run 2nd Street through there, and this is the group of people that know whether that's going to happen or not. And I do value your projection and what you feel like is best for the city of Russellville, and I truly mean that. I want what's best for Recovery Zone and the children also with special needs in the city of Russellville. Through the Planning Commission discussion, it was dropped to 10 feet, which gave Kirk and I some time to go out and get some exact measurements. I know that we have 60 feet to work with. I don't want to confuse anything, and I will walk out here graciously humble and appreciative of 10 feet. But looking at it, if there was a way we could get 15, it would give us two to three extra parking spots, because when you extend out that much, you can slant the parking slots less, therefore getting more in there. And I know that there's procedures in that, but the original motion was just to vacate a portion. It didn't define actual footage. I know on the agenda it's a recommendation for 10 feet from the Planning Commission. The reason it's not 15 on there is because we had a chance to go back and measure that after the Planning Commission vote. If y'all have any questions or that I could help with.
15 feet, well, 15 feet would give you 2 more parking spaces, is that correct?
2 to 3, I
2
believe.
to 3?
Mhm.
Okay. And then,
That,
so that's a 60-foot right-of-way right now, and if we gave 15, it'd be 45, 2 lanes, two wide traffic lanes would be 13 and a half feet, that's 27. And that leaves 18 feet, 9 feet on either side of the curb. Is that not enough?
Not from not, it's not.
I mean,
One,
I'm
one-
saying, well, I'm really not.
I'm,
I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
You need, I'm not,
no,
you need 2 to 3 more parking spaces and 15 feet would do it.
yes, sir.
I'm just, looks to me like 15 feet is not unreasonable, and 45 feet's plenty of right of way.
that would allow, Mr. Irwin, that would allow 2 11-foot lanes and then 11 and a half feet on either side,
that's right.
which
Should be
would
plenty.
work. It
Plenty.
would work, yeah.
it's also going to impact your size of your playground, which is integral to your sites, is it not?
Yes, if we could get 15 feet instead of the 10 feet, we wouldn't have to cut out as near as much playground as we were going to have to do to put some parking in the back. So I would really appreciate 15 feet if it's doable
Okay.
for the city.
Mr. Harris, did Planning Commission discuss 15 feet, or?
No,
If I read the minutes, I don't remember seeing any discussion on it.
No,
we,
it
we
started
just
with
talked about, we just talked about that,
They
Mr.
originally
Smith
started-
and I, but go ahead.
We talked about 30, and then
30
30 or
and
10
10,
were the two.
yeah.
Was
Yeah.
not
And-
offerings.
Dana said that after the planning commission, they went back and got some different numbers.
Mhm.
That's what I thought.
Was that contemplated at the planning commission?
I don't remember that we discussed that at the planning commission, that would be anything like that, but
They,
I asked Mr. Smith if changing this or adjusting this was at our discretion, and since it was not specified by the planning commission one way or the other, we do have that discretion.
Oh, we do,
So
okay.
the 10-foot number, is that an arbitrary number, or did y'all suggest it just out of the air, or?
we were asked to suggest it out of the air, and at that time, that's just a number we come up
And you
with.
didn't have the measurements that you have now?
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Is that,
I'm comfortable with that. In fact, if you go through the zoning code, you could make an argument that every number in there, to some degree, is arbitrary. Somebody decided, well, 8 feet is the setback you must have, or, you know.
but you're
so
comfortable with a 15-foot?
if Mr. Smith is okay with it procedurally, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
right.
the number just, it came about because that's according to our land subdevelopment code, 50 feet's the minimum that
That's
we
right.
have for just a road. So that's where I think it came from, to try and keep a road viable. But if y'all want to do 45,
Less than 50.
Was it gonna keep us from putting the road there if it's 45?
One block, right?
it'll be one block, and it'll just, basically, you'll just be not conforming to the land subdivision development code. But it wasn't just picked out of the air, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Of course, I guess I wonder if our zoning code says 50 foot, why we would go anything less than that.
50 feet's the minimum? I thought it was 45.
I think
I
that-
looked at it that night, and that's what I saw that night, so.
I think the table in the land subdivision development code, 50 is the minimum, but
For it to stay.
you've clearly given waivers on things from that code before, so it's not like it's an impossible
Well,
barrier.
and point out that this, that street was here before it doesn't really matter, but there are many, many streets over there in that area where there are 40-foot rights of way. So,
We definitely have 40-foot right-of-ways in town.
We've deviated, this body has deviated in the past, is that what you're saying?
Yes, from land subdivision development code,
It's
absolutely.
one block we're talking about? I mean, the linear,
And as I understand it, you can build the street the same from end to end. You're just gonna have to cram your utilities in a little bit
Well, there's
less
not really
space
much
there.
cramming going on there. There's plenty of room there, 11 feet on each side. It's plenty.
Yeah, what
It's
I
actually about half a
11
block,
feet.
is it not? Because it's halfway in between Seattle and Tulsa. It's not even the whole way through.
It's 160
Well,
feet, I believe.
my statement was it would just be affecting that one
That's right.
block. Yeah, it
And
really
it's-
doesn't go the whole block.
And the fact is that there is still an adequate amount of room to put the utilities.
When is this street planned to go? When do we plan to put this street in?
We don't
Yeah.
yet.
Is there anyone else, while we have the public hearing open, is there anyone else that wants to address this from the public? Any other questions here from the bench? You have anything else, Ms. Warren?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing regarding this item, and then we will address this ordinance and the direction that we will go based upon the hearing information that we have. So we do have an ordinance requested vacating the 10 feet of the 60-foot right-of-way.
Before I read it, I'll just ask you what you
Pardon?
want to. I'm sorry, I'm answering.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Of which I read the blocks and the lots of the McClure and Bayless additions for which this request has been made. And you have heard the discussion during the public hearing. Do I hear any motion regarding this item?
First, I'd motion that we suspend the rules and read one time by title only.
What,
I would second that.
don't we need to amend it?
Nope.
Well, I thought, I didn't know.
Not
I
yet,
want to
we did
amend
this-
it, but I thought we had to do
Oh,
the
yeah.
suspension
Need to
first.
suspend, right?
You can, if you want to suspend it and read it, if you want to suspend it and then make a motion and then amend it that way, or if you want me just to go ahead and make the amendment now, either way is fine. If you want to go this route, then you can suspend
Well, we
it.
have a
Well,
motion.
generally, we have suspended the rules, so
Okay,
let's
go ahead.
go through
got a
that
motion.
process, and then we can amend them. We have a motion to suspend the rules, read one time by title only with a short explanation. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Smith,
All right.
or,
An ordinance vacating and abandoning part of the West Second Street Block 10 McClure Bayless additions, City of Russellville, Arkansas, for the purposes this ordinance, if passed, as written at this time, would abandon the north 10 feet of 60-foot right-of-way of West Second Street that lies adjacent to and south of lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and Block 10 of McClure and Bayless additions, City of Russellville, Arkansas, as further described in Exhibit A attached with this ordinance.
do I hear another motion to amend then at this point?
Make a motion to amend this ordinance from 10 feet to abandoning the north 15 feet of the 60-foot right-of-way on West Second Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for an amendment to this ordinance. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Next step.
It's been amended, so motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Please read the roll, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freen Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber.
No.
Motion carries.
I do need to find out from the Warrens, is this something that you need right away if we can act on that?
30 days too long to wait?
The only reason we would need it quicker than that would be because we've got to get we want to get a survey done to find exactly where the boundaries are, and then get an excavation crew in there. We've got quite a bit of work to do to try and get open by July 1st.
Motion
Okay.
to adopt the emergency clause.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the emergency clause. Any other discussion? All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
Mr. Martin Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Seth Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, lady and gentlemen. New business number 4, consideration of a resolution to issue a special use permit to allow an auto body repair shop on East 28th Street, recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adopt, Your Honor.
Second.
Any discussion?
Here's where it is, Jimmy Law Road.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes, I hear you.
Mr. Roberts might like to say something.
What?
You have something to
Mr.
tell us, Mr.
Roberts.
Roberts? That's your neighbor, maybe, your mailman?
Oh, my, thank you.
School, there, getting in
Thank you.
trouble.
I didn't know I was gonna do this, but
You said you wanted to, I just thought
my mailman, who's very faithful and just really good fella, has got a son that he has petitioned me, came to ask me, he's applied for a position at the police department, and he asked me to respectfully mention his name. Tyler Obersteet is his name.
Is that respectful?
That's, respectfully consider him, the chief's gone. So
Well,
we tried.
that's okay. Well,
Ms.,
congratulations
would
to
the HR director like to speak to that at this?
To it in general terms, as much as we'd like to put somebody ahead, this is all done by civil service and testing, and it's a certified list.
Okay.
And so if he tested well and he scored well, he'll be higher on the list. They'll probably publish that list on Tuesday at the Civil Service Commission meeting.
I just did what I was asked.
Well, we understand that, and we appreciate your support of this gentleman, I'm sure.
One more thing, Your Honor.
I hear you.
Motion to adjourn.
I think I'll accept that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Nothing.